So I would again like to thank everyone who's helped me get the bill to this point. It's been a lot of people. And it is, I think, quite a momentous moment because this is a very important bill. Air pollution is the UK's largest environmental health risk. This bill will set England and Wales on course to comply with the World Health Organisation's new air quality guidelines within the next 5 to 10 years. It will achieve our carbon budgets and protect our natural environment. Just as we follow the science with COVID-19, we must follow the science with the air pollution pandemic. There have been several important international developments since the second reading of my bill on 8th of July, which I wish to highlight. We're also much closer to 2 important anniversaries, which I'd like to remind you about. On the 28th of July, the UN's General Assembly adopted a resolution recognising the right to a clean, healthy and sustainable environment as a human right. This resolution calls upon states, international organisations and business enterprises to scale up efforts to ensure a healthy environment for all. 161 countries voted in favour, including the UK, with none against. So that means that the government has signed up to a UN resolution to make clean air a human right. My bill turns that declaration into something meaningful in England and Wales. So today, here in your Lordship's house, I will hope we do the government's work for them by making clean air a fundamental and legally enforceable human right for people in this country. On the 26th of October, the European Commission published its proposals for the revision of the European Union's ambient air quality directives after more than 4 years of analysis, discussion and consultations. They have proposed new limit values for fine particulate matter, so-called PM2.5, and nitrogen dioxide, so-called NO2, to be attained by January the 1st, 2030, and put the EU on track to deliver zero pollution for air by 2050. Now, the important anniversaries in the next few weeks can include the 70th anniversary of the Great Smog of 1952, between the 5th and the 9th of December. And following that, the 10th anniversary of the tragic death of Ella Roberta Adoo-Kissi-Debrah, aged 9, on the 15th of February 2023. And I'm very grateful to her mother, Rosamund Adoo-Kissi-Debrah, for being here today and listening to this debate and agreeing that the Clean Air Human Rights Bill could be called Ella's Law. We will be doing this for Ella, for children like her, but also for all of us as well, so that none of us has to suffer from poisoned air. So my bill is very timely. In fact, it's being presented in the right place at the right time to address the public health, environmental and climate emergencies that we face. I'm grateful to everyone who spoke at second reading or has spoken to me since about the bill. The Noble Lady Baroness Jones of Whitchurch has asked me particularly to highlight her support for my bill in her necessary absence today. The Noble Lady Baroness Findlay of Llanduff pointed out that the issue of internal air pollution in schools and homes is also extremely dangerous. She is unable to be here today. And the Noble Lord Moylan, raised issues that we have recognised. And other noble lords have written showing how the standards in my bill can be achieved or used to deliver clean air. My lords, these amendments to my bill will give the UK the best and most up-to-date clean air standards in the world. Each of these amendments amends and improves an incredibly strong bill. And together they make my bill oven ready for the government to adopt. They can take it and run and do something fantastic for the UK. For those who want more or something slightly different, I would encourage you to present evidence to ministers, the Citizens Commission for Clean Air and public authorities once my bill has achieved royal assent and given them new powers and duties. And if I can, I'd be very happy to help in that process if it will deliver clean air sooner. Let's give Rosamund Ella's Law on the 70th anniversary of the Great Smog and before the 10th anniversary of Ella's death on the 15th of February 2023. I hope you will support my amendments today and that the government will agree to allow my bill time to progress in the other place early in the new year and reach royal assent. I beg to move.
And I would say that we have waited too long for proper clean air. We tried it in the Environment Act as it now is, and we do owe it to those people who live with the consequences of the pollution that unfortunately people are living and I'm afraid dying with. So I just urge my honourable friend, my noble friend, the Minister, to take back and say this is a golden opportunity to do something really wonderful.
I want to make one other comment. It is absolutely right that this is called Ella's Law, and it's good to have Ella's mother here today. But this week there has been news of an inquest that will provide a change as a result of this bill going through in the future. And that is the death of 2-year-old Awab Ishak, who died from cardiac arrest respiratory condition following months of exposure to black mould and damp in his local authority home, or housing association home, I should say. Despite the fact that these two cases relate to children, there are many, many adults whose health has been ruined by the lack of clean air, whether inside or out. And I do hope the government will understand that. It isn't quite as broad as Lord Randall outlined. It's very, very particular in providing the very strict law about the human right and how it affects public bodies. And I do hope the government will recognise, especially after the government's comments earlier this week about the Awab Ishak inquest, that now is the right time to move this forward.
Air pollution has been breaching legal limits across the UK since 2010. And the government actually recognises that this is the single largest environmental risk to health in the UK, with links to cancer, asthma, strokes, heart disease. So toxic air also drives health inequalities. Government analysis confirms air quality tends to be poorest in the poorest communities, and that those communities are also more likely to have health conditions that makes them more vulnerable to toxic air. So it was very disappointing with during the process of the Environment Act through this House that the government didn't decide to be ambitious on this. It refused to include the World Health Organization targets that would have set the UK on the pathway to become a global leader in environmental protection. Instead of doing that, the government launched yet another consultation looking at new targets for PM2.5 and other pollutants, and also said it would develop a more sophisticated population exposure reduction target. And it said that this would all be published, these new targets would be published by the deadline of October this year. Since then, we've seen nothing. The noble Minister and the Secretary of State and the other place have been unable to say when we'll actually see these targets, when they'll be published. All we've heard is that we will continue to work at pace in order to lay draft statutory instruments as soon as practicable. What does this mean? How fast is working at pace? So can I ask the noble Lord the Minister if he agrees with me that it is completely unacceptable to make commitments on the floor of your Lordship's House that are then not followed up, particularly when there is a legal requirement to do so. And it also makes a complete mockery of the Minister's response to the second reading of this bill, that it isn't necessary. This bill is not necessary because of the framework in the Environment Act. But what good is a framework if you don't have the overarching targets that are needed to actually deliver change? So I ask the Minister again, when will the government publish the targets? Will it commit to the WHO recommendations? And when will we see action on meeting them? We have heard that it's been suggested that if this bill passes into law, it becomes Ella's Law. So I'd like to end by paying tribute to Rosamund, who is here with us today, Ella's mother, for her tireless campaigning since her daughter died after suffering the fatal asthma attack caused by toxic air. As the noble lady Baroness Jones said in her introduction, we are here for Ella, and I genuinely don't understand why the government doesn't do more.
Well said.
Once again, I pay tribute to the noble lady Baroness Jones. Her bill will help to raise awareness of the effects of air pollution, its impacts and the actions that can be taken to reduce it, and protect the vulnerable from its effects, which is of course welcome. I thank the noble lady for her assiduous campaigning on air quality, and I look forward to continuing discussions with colleagues across your Lordship's House on this vitally important matter, as the government continues to make progress on improving the air that we all breathe.
And I also appreciate that there are no easy solutions, but you have to start somewhere. And this bill is a very good place to start. I realise it's tough, but when the Noble Lord the Minister talks about costs to individuals and businesses, actually there are already costs of polluted air to individuals and to businesses. It costs the NHS, it costs families, it costs social security. It is a cost to us that we don't somehow calculate.